Hello, hello. We are the Ethical Consumption Before Capitalism 2023 cohort. My name is Baron.
I'm Sarah.
I'm Elizabeth.
I'm Jingyun.
All right, so for our project, we've been analyzing the language in the 17th century text surrounding the Virginia Company of London and how early English colonization affected the views surrounding different groups of people. We paid special attention to the emerging ideas of profit, specifically the idea of religious profit. To achieve this, we employed both close reading techniques and computational linguistics methodologies. Our results can be visualized in our R-Shiny app right here.
So on our app, we have several different options for visualizations that users can choose. Cosine similarity graphs, word embeddings, and heat maps, part of speech, bigrams over time, and unigrams over time.
For cosine similarity graphs, we have overtime visualizations for our keywords. Cosine similarity is calculated by turning words into vectors, and the math can be performed on these vectors to see how close they are to one another in space. By doing this, we can see how similarities between words increase or decrease over time as they become more or less related. For example, if you click on our Indian graph, you can see that the word Indian becomes highly associated with that of savage over time. Word embeddings also cover cosine similarity, but it's visualized a bit differently. They show how closely words are associated in certain time periods for a closer look than overtime graphs. By clicking on the Irish subcorpus here, you can see that there's quite a dark association between the word Irishman and beggarly, as well as wild and uncivil. The darker the color, the more associated two words are.
Part of speech association tracks the top 10 adjectives, nouns, and verbs for each keyword. This gives a much more grammatical outlook, and we can see how the descriptions surrounding certain keywords directly change, or when certain words start to become more associated with keywords. For example, when we can see that after the period 1590 to 1599, wild starts to become highly associated with the Irish.
Now let's go to our bigrams tab. This lets us see what word pairs show up in our text and how often they appear. Let's take a look at one of our graphs. Some periods can have spikes in them due to a large amount of text in that date range. However, we still can see the buy slave in higher than other bigrams only after 1624, only 5 years after the first shipment of slaves to Virginia. This indicates a rise in slave labor being mentioned in text.
Our Unigrams page is similar to a bigrams page, except that we are looking at just one word's frequency over time, hence uni. Let's look at the enslavement graph on this end. So, much like the bigram graph, we do have to be careful with our interpretation, as we opted for a smaller corpus because we wanted more specific and insightful words, i.e., we didn't really want God to be popping up here because we knew the English were religious people. However, we can still see that Angola spikes right on the red line, which is interesting because the first slaves imported into Virginia were indeed from Angola.
To see more documentation of our process as well, you can visit both our GitHub, which has all the code we use for computational analysis, and also our Duke site, which has information on the historical background of our time period and explains the methodology we use to get these results as well. This project will be continued in the fall with Fast Connections, where more close reading and analysis will be done on these texts. We would like to thank our project manager, Hannah Jorgensen, and our project leads, Dr. Juni and Dr. Hines, for all their help on this project.